God made us perfectly. Why do we practice pratyahara, or the withdrawal of the senses? God gave us eyes to see, ears to hear, noses to smell, hands to touch, tongues to taste. So why should we withdraw the senses? A bit of background for those of you not from the yoga tradition. In the 8 limbs of yoga, as the sage Patanjali gave to us, he gave limbs that move from the yamas and the niyamas of how we live, through asana, what we do with the body, through pranayam, the breath, and then we start moving inward. So we go pratyahara, we withdraw the senses inward. Dharana, which is a single pointed focus. Then dhyan, meditation. And then ultimately the 8th limb of samadhi, or divine bliss, ecstasy, union, enlightenment. So pratyahara. Why do sensory withdrawal if God has given us these wonderful eyes to see, ears to hear, noses to smell, fingers to touch, tongues to taste? Why withdraw them? It's a great question. Because one of the things that I emphasize so frequently is God doesn't make mistakes. And so what God gives us clearly is for a purpose. If we feel emotion, if we feel sadness, if we have tears that cry, if we feel love, well, these are things we're supposed to feel. So, senses. Why would we withdraw our senses if God has given them to us? Just because God has given us a gift doesn't mean that he, she, it, however we envision the divine, meant for us to use that gift recklessly. So, yes, we have tongues that taste, but that doesn't mean we should eat everything. We have fingers that touch, doesn't mean we should touch everything. Anybody who's ever touched a hot burner, a leaf of poison ivy, a snake, knows clearly this was not what God intended when we were given the ability to sense. It was not for us to get hurt. So just because we have the senses doesn't mean that we're supposed to use them recklessly. We also have sexual organs. God's given them to us. Doesn't mean that we're supposed to go out just because we have sexual organs, go out and have sex with everybody. Doesn't mean we're supposed to have sex all the time. Just because God has given us something doesn't mean use it with reckless abandon. Use it however you want. Everything we've been given for a purpose. And the sense organs have been given to us so that we can know the outer world. You are sitting in front of me. I'm aware of that. That's part of my knowledge. But how did it become part of my knowledge? Because my organs of sight have seen you. Or if maybe I were blind and I didn't have eyes that saw, but you spoke, I would be able to hear you. Maybe you have a scent, so I was able to smell you. If you're interacting with someone who can neither see nor hear, what we have is touch. We reach out, we touch them. Blind people frequently will want to touch your face so they can recognize you. But we need at least one functional organ of sensation to know the outer world. If I don't have sight, sound, smell, touch, because I certainly can't taste you, so I would need you to have one of those four. If I don't have any of those four functioning, you could still be here, of course, but I would have no way of knowing that. Our only way to know the outer world is these organs of sensation. But what about the inner world? How are we supposed to know the inner world? Every scripture, every teaching, every saint, every sage, every master reminds us over and over and over again, the real world is the inner one. I need my organ of touch so that when I put my hand on a hot stove, I'm able to remove it immediately. If I didn't have sensory neurons that worked immediately in my spinal cord, connecting to the motor neurons that were going to bring my hand off the stove, I would leave it there. I would burn myself. And after a few seconds, I would give myself such a burn that it would become infected, could get septic, I could die. So the organ of sensation, all of them, are very, very important to help us interact with the world around us. You're walking through the jungle. You hear the distinct rattle of a rattlesnake. Or, depending on which jungle you happen to be in, you hear a far-off roar of a lion. Whatever your jungle may be, that sound makes us know, maybe it's better to go backwards. Maybe not to keep heading in this direction. Or you're driving your car and you hear a very, very loud horn. Puts you on alert. Suddenly it's alerted you to the fact that there's a car that ran a red light and it's about to hit you. So these senses are of great importance. They help us navigate the world. You wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, or any time actually. Walking down, if you don't have your organ of sight, fall down your stairs on the way to the bathroom. Hit your head, die. Our organs of sensation keep us alive and healthy and help us interact with the world. Everything we do in the outer world is rooted in these. But as we are reminded over and over again, the real world is the inner world. And this is where pratyahara comes in. If we want to achieve samadhi, if we want to achieve enlightenment, we want to achieve divine yogic union, bliss, ecstasy. Well, before that comes meditation. But before I can meditate, I have to take this crazy mind that's in 1,000 places and put it in one place. A mantra, a candle flame, an image. But before I can even do that, I have to stop my organs of sensation and therefore perception from being rooted in the outer world. That's why it's very, very difficult to meditate while you're in the middle of a basketball game. In the middle of a basketball court, you've got to keep your eyes open, or a soccer field, or wherever you may be, or a supermarket, or driving your car. Anything you're doing that requires you to be focused outward, on the other cars, on the other players of your sports team, that requires you to be listening, seeing, touching, moving. it's very difficult to meditate in that moment. Because your perception, which happens in the mind, is rooted in these sensory organs that face outward. So it's taking in the sensation, processing them as perception in my mind, enabling me to drive my car, or play basketball, or walk down the street, or whatever I'm doing. Which is why when we go to meditate, what's the first thing we do? We close our eyes. We try to choose a place that's quiet. If we can't, we put in earplugs or we listen to chanting of Om. Because I have to be able to draw my senses inward in order for me to put them onto the one thing I'm going to focus on. Whether it's my mantra, whether it's a candle, whether it's an image, whether it's my breath. And from that single pointed focus, I'm able to merge into a state of meditation. And from that, I'm able, with grace, to experience samadhi. But the pratyahara is the crucial first step. So for the outer world, our sensory organs, we tell God, thank you very much for the fact that I didn't fall down the stairs today. I was able to hear, took my hand off the hot stove. I'm able to see a rainbow, to see a sunset, to see the faces of my loved ones, to hear the sound of my loved ones. But now thank you for this inner world where I can see you and hear you. So we need both.